He was the billionaire CEO she hated most in the world. The only problem? She was falling madly in love with him, living a sweet lie under his perfect secret identity. This isn't just a simple love story, it's a journey into the razor-thin line between deep-seated hatred and true love, and how a single shocking revelation can trigger a life-changing drama. Have you ever felt like the universe was playing a cruel joke on you? That the one person you trusted with your heart could be the source of your greatest betrayal? This is the story of Maria Palmer, a woman fighting for her community, and Dale Kennedy, a powerful CEO who went undercover to escape his own life, only to find the one thing he couldn't buy. We promise you an emotional roller coaster. A tale of a rich man and a poor woman, filled with moments where one is humiliated, a case of mistaken identity, and a plot twist so stunning it will make you question everything. Get ready for a romance where the sting of betrayal is just as potent as the thrill of love. The stakes could not be higher. Her heart is on the line, his soul is up for grabs, and a corporate empire is about to be shaken by one unexpected surprise. What happens when the man you've sworn to hate becomes the only person you simply can't live without? If you're ready for a story that will grip you from the very first second to the last, comment "I'm ready" below. Like this video if you believe in the power of second chances, and subscribe so you don't miss a single moment of this incredible journey. Let's begin. It wasn't a gradual realization, it was a crash. Maria Palmer felt her world splinter into a million unrecognizable pieces in a single heart-stopping moment. The kind, funny, and impossibly down-to-earth man she was falling for, the one who saw her and not the struggle surrounding her, was a ghost. A beautifully crafted illusion designed to hide a monster. And that monster had a name she cursed in her sleep: Dale Kennedy. This wasn't just a surprise, it was a cataclysm. The man who had listened to her dreams was the same ruthless billionaire CEO trying to tear them down. It felt like a sick joke, a plot twist from a twisted novel designed to inflict the maximum amount of pain. Every shared laugh now felt like a lie, every gentle touch a calculated move in a game she never even knew she was playing. The shock was so profound, it left her breathless, unable to reconcile the two identities coexisting in one man. She felt a strange, physical disconnect from her surroundings, as if she were watching a movie of her own life. The sounds of the city faded into a dull hum, and the air seemed to thin, making each breath a conscious effort. This was the sensation of true betrayal, a cognitive dissonance so severe it scrambled her senses. Her heart was telling her one thing, a story of a gentle romance, while her eyes were screaming a brutal, undeniable truth. This discovery was more than just a personal betrayal, it was a fundamental shattering of her reality. She had allowed herself to be vulnerable, to believe that a man of genuine kindness still existed in her world. But it turned out her instincts were a cruel trick, leading her straight into the arms of the very man she hated most. This wasn't a simple case of mistaken identity, it felt like a targeted attack on her soul. The warmth she had felt in his presence curdled into a cold, heavy dread. How could she have been so blind? How could the man who helped her sort donated books be the same CEO whose name was synonymous with corporate greed? The duality was impossible to comprehend, and the emotional whiplash was staggering. It was a shocking revelation that reframed her entire perception of the past few months. She felt utterly humiliated, not just for being fooled, but for defending him in her mind. For thinking he was different, a rare soul in a world full of cynical players. This Dale, the one she thought she knew, was a carefully constructed secret identity, a phantom. The real Dale Kennedy was the one she had protested against, fought against, and now, somehow, had to face as the man who held her heart. The ground beneath her feet was gone, replaced by a chasm of doubt and pain. Her fairy tale romance had turned into a nightmare of drama and deceit. The love story she thought was blooming was, in fact, the prelude to an epic tragedy, a life-changing event orchestrated by a billionaire. And Maria Palmer had no idea what her next move should be in this cruel game. Long before she met the man she knew as Alex, Maria Palmer was a warrior. She wasn't fighting with weapons, but with petitions, community meetings, and an unshakable belief in people. She was a compassionate community advocate, the beating heart of her neighborhood, a place rich in spirit, but poor in resources. Her current battle was a David and Goliath struggle against the heartless corporate policies of Kennedy Enterprises. The company, a faceless titan of industry, saw her neighborhood not as a collection of homes and lives, but as a plot of land ripe for redevelopment. To them, the community center she poured her soul into was just a dilapidated building occupying valuable real estate. To Maria, it was a sanctuary, a place where kids found safety and the elderly found companionship. And the CEO, Dale Kennedy, was the faceless villain behind it all. She spoke his name with a mix of fire and disdain. He was the symbol of everything she fought against: unchecked power, corporate greed, and a complete disregard for the little guy. In her speeches at town halls, she painted a vivid picture of a cold-hearted CEO in an ivory tower, making decisions that would shatter lives without a second thought. She hated him purely, deeply, and from a distance. This wasn't her first fight, and she had the scars and victories to prove it. Just last year, she had successfully campaigned against a zoning change that would have allowed a chemical plant to be built near the local elementary school. It was a grueling 6-month battle that she won through sheer persistence and an uncanny ability to rally people to her cause. She knew how to win against giants, and she was prepared to do it again. Her fight was personal. She had grown up in this neighborhood, and its people were her family. She organized fundraisers, tutored children after school, and delivered groceries to those who couldn't leave their homes. Every nail she hammered into the community center's new bookshelf was an act of defiance against the billionaire who wanted to tear it all down. Her life was a testament to her cause. This wasn't just a job for her, it was her life's purpose. She believed in the power of community to stand up against corporate giants, to make their voices heard. The struggle was exhausting, an uphill battle against endless legal teams and bureaucratic red tape. But Maria's resolve never wavered. She was fueled by a righteous anger and a fierce love for her people, a classic rich man, poor woman conflict. Little did she know, the battle lines she had drawn were far more complicated than she could ever imagine. She was fighting a war on two fronts, one in the public square against a CEO she'd never met, and another in her heart for a man who didn't truly exist. The stage was set for a truly emotional and life-changing collision of worlds. Meanwhile, high above the city in a sterile penthouse, Dale Kennedy was suffocating. He lived in a gilded cage, surrounded by opulence, but starved of authenticity. Every interaction was transactional, every smile a negotiation. He was the celebrated billionaire, CEO of Kennedy Enterprises, a master of the boardroom, yet he felt like a fraud in his own life. Boredom and cynicism were his closest companions. He was tired of the sycophants, the gold diggers, the endless parade of people who wanted a piece of the Kennedy empire. They didn't see him, they saw a walking, talking dollar sign. The question haunted him, would anyone ever value him for who he was, not what he had? It was a profound loneliness that no amount of money could cure, a deep-seated drama playing out in his soul. This wasn't a new feeling. He had tried to find a genuine connection before, within his own social sphere. Each attempt had ended in a quiet disaster of disappointment. There was the model who accidentally let slip her publicist's strategy for their relationship, and the heiress whose family was more interested in a merger than a marriage. These experiences had only calcified his belief that love, for him, was just another business transaction. So he decided to run an experiment. He concocted a secret identity, shedding the tailored suits and the weight of his last name like a second skin. He became Alex, a regular working man, taking on odd jobs and living in a modest apartment. He went undercover, not for business intelligence, but for human intelligence. He was on a mission to find someone, anyone, who was genuine. It was a drastic move, a rebellion against the life he had built. His security detail was horrified, and his board of directors would have been apoplectic if they knew. But for Dale, it was a breath of fresh air. For the first time in years, he could walk down the street without being recognized, have a conversation without a hidden agenda, and feel the simple, uncomplicated texture of a normal life. This hidden identity was his escape, a way to see the world from the ground up, not from the top down. He wanted to see how people treated someone who seemingly had nothing to offer them. It was a cynical experiment at its heart, born from years of disappointment and mistrust. He fully expected to have his bleak worldview confirmed, to find that everyone was, in the end, out for themselves. He was searching for a flicker of authenticity in a world he believed to be fake. He had no idea that his social experiment would lead him not to a quiet confirmation of his beliefs, but to a fiery, passionate woman who would challenge everything he thought he knew about the world and about himself. His journey undercover was about to get very real. Dale's undercover journey led him to the one place where authenticity was a currency: Maria's community center. It wasn't an accident, not really. He had heard about the vocal, persistent community advocate who was a thorn in his company's side. Intrigued, and perhaps a little arrogant, he decided to get a closer look at his adversary. He coincidentally volunteered for a weekend project, a perfect vantage point for his experiment. Initially, he viewed Maria as just another variable, another test subject. He observed her with a detached curiosity, analyzing her every move. He saw her passion, her tireless energy, her genuine connection with the people around her. He had expected to find a naive idealist or a calculating opportunist. Instead, he found something that his cynical mind couldn't quite categorize: genuine integrity. His first impression of the center itself was predictably cynical. He saw the peeling paint on the walls, the mismatched, donated furniture, and the general state of disrepair. From a business perspective, it was a failing asset, a liability. He mentally calculated the cost of demolition versus renovation, his CEO brain automatically assessing the situation. He saw blight where Maria saw a beloved, essential haven. He watched as she effortlessly commanded the respect of the volunteers, not through authority, but through her own hard work. She was the first to arrive, the last to leave, her hands just as dirty as everyone else's. Dale, as Alex, found himself drawn into her orbit, mesmerized by the fierce light in her eyes as she spoke about her cause. This was a world away from the polished, sterile boardroom presentations he was used to. He played his part perfectly, the quiet but helpful newcomer. He listened more than he spoke, gathering data for his social experiment. He saw firsthand the impact Kennedy Enterprises policies were having on real people, a reality that had always been insulated from him by layers of executives and quarterly reports. For the first time, the collateral damage of his business had a human face, and it was Maria's. Their first conversations were simple, revolving around the tasks at hand-painting a wall, sorting books, serving meals. But even in these small moments, he could feel a pull toward her. She treated him with the same open kindness she showed everyone else, with no pretense or ulterior motives. To her, he was just Alex, a guy helping out. The anonymity was both liberating and deeply unsettling. He told himself it was all part of the plan, that getting close to her was simply a means to an end. But as he watched her laugh with a group of children, a strange, unfamiliar feeling began to stir within him. His detached social experiment was quickly becoming a very personal, very complicated emotional entanglement. The hidden identity had created was starting to feel more real than the one head left behind. The irony was so thick, Dale could practically taste it. During a lunch break, surrounded by fellow volunteers, Maria Palmer started a rant. And the target of her righteous fury was none other than the man sitting right next to her, albeit under a different name. Unaware of his true identity, she openly, and with blistering passion, criticized the cold-hearted CEO Dale Kennedy to his face. Dale, as Alex just listened, his expression a carefully neutral mask. He heard himself described as a vulture, a Sulz's corporate machine, a man who wouldn't know a moment of genuine human struggle if it hit him in the face. Every word was a perfectly aimed dart, and to his utter surprise, he wasn't angry. Instead, he was utterly captivated, impressed by her fiery integrity. In his world, people either feared him or flattered him. No one, not ever, had spoken about him with such raw, unfiltered honesty. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was speaking her truth, a truth that painted him as the villain in her life story. And in that moment, something shifted within him. He saw a strength and a conviction that he had never encountered before, a stark contrast to the hollow pleasantries of his daily life. For a fleeting second, a cold spike of fear shot through him. It wasn't the fear of being discovered, but something far more terrifying, the fear that she was absolutely right about him. Hearing his actions described through her lens of morality was like seeing a monstrous version of himself in a mirror. He quickly pushed the feeling down, retreating behind the safety of his Alex persona, but the chilling moment of self-recognition lingered. He found himself subtly defending his alter ego, not to reveal himself, but to understand her. Maybe he doesn't see the full picture, had offered gently, testing the waters. Maria's response was swift and uncompromising. She argued that it was a CEO's job to see the full picture, that willful ignorance was the most unforgivable sin of the powerful. She wasn't just passionate, she was intelligent and articulate. This conversation was a turning point. It was no longer a detached experiment. Her words got under his skin, making him see his own actions through her eyes. He was the faceless monster in her story, the source of her community's biggest threat. And yet, sitting there beside her, he felt more human than he had in a decade. The romance of the situation was starting to dawn on him in a very real way. He was impressed, disarmed, and completely hooked. She didn't know she was staring her enemy in the face, but her courage in speaking truth to power even a symbolic power was profoundly attractive. The man she hated, Dale Kennedy, was beginning to fall for the woman who despised him. The plot twist was one he could have never predicted. Dale's cynical mind needed one final definitive test. The integrity Maria projected was powerful, but his experience had taught him that everyone had a price. So he orchestrated a subtle test, a moral dilemma designed to reveal her true character. He accidentally left a wallet, this real wallet, full of a significant amount of cash and his actual IDON, a bench near where she was working. Then, he watched from a distance, holding his breath. He half expected her to take the money. It would have been easy. No one was looking, and the amount inside could have funded her community center's needs for months. It would have confirmed his bleak view of humanity, that when push comes to shove, people take what they can get. It would have been a disappointing, but not surprising, outcome. It would have ended the emotional confusion she was stirring in him. But Maria Palmer did something that left him absolutely stunned. She found the wallet. Her eyes widened at the amount of cash inside, and then she immediately began asking everyone nearby if they had lost it. When no one claimed it, she didn't pocket it. Instead, he watched as she went to great lengths, using her own time and resources to find the owner. She spent hours trying to track down the Dale Kennedy from the ID. The image of her, determined and slightly stressed, trying to do the right thing, was a powerful blow to the cynical walls around his heart. She saw the name of her sworn enemy, the hated billionaire, and her first instinct wasn't revenge or opportunism, it was honor. She went out of her way to return the property of the man she despised, without taking a single dollar for her trouble. He was stunned into silence. He had never witnessed such a pure act of integrity. This wasn't a performance, it was her character in its rawest form. When she finally managed to get the wallet to a Kennedy Enterprises office, leaving it with security, Dale felt a wave of shame and admiration wash over him. His cheap little test had revealed nothing about her, but everything about him. The final pillar of his cynicism crumbled to dust when he got the call from his head of security. The man reported, with a tone of disbelief, that a woman had just dropped off the CEO's lost wallet and that she had refused the standard cash reward offered for its return. She had simply said, "Just make sure he gets it," and left. That single detail sealed it. Her integrity wasn't for sale at any price. This was the moment his social experiment died and something much more real began. It was a life-changing realization. This woman, Maria Palmer, was the genuine article. A true love for her community drove her to be better, to do the right thing, even when no one was watching. He was stunned, and he knew, with terrifying certainty, that he was in serious trouble. He was completely captivated by her integrity. "Now let's be real for a second. Will you have returned the wallet? No questions asked? Be honest with us in the comments below." As Dale's feelings for Maria deepened, their two worlds were destined for a collision. The first impact came in the form of a wealthy socialite, a woman from Dale's real life named Genevieve, who had her sights set on the billionaire CEO. She spotted Dale Alex with Maria at a small outdoor cafe, a rare moment of peace for the two of them. Genevieve, dripping in diamonds and disdain, saw an opportunity for a power play. She approached their table, her smile as sharp as glass. With a theatrical surprise, she tried to publicly humiliate Maria for her simple clothes and working-class background. She made condescending remarks, thinly veiled insults about Maria's life, all while trying to pull Alex away, reminding him of a charity gala he was supposed to be at. It was a classic move to establish social dominance and expose Maria as an outsider. Maria, though flustered, held her ground with quiet dignity. She was used to being underestimated, but the venom in the woman's attack was personal and cruel. She looked to Alex, expecting him to be embarrassed or to make a hasty retreat back to the world he clearly belonged to. She braced herself for the sting of abandonment, to be revealed as a temporary amusement for a man playing at being poor. But then, something truly shocking happened. Dale, the man who had built his empire on ruthless calculation, did something impulsive and genuine. He stood up, not as Alex the handyman, but with the quiet authority of Dale Kennedy. He didn't raise his voice, but his words were ice. He calmly and firmly defended Maria's honor, shutting down Genevieve's attack with a chilling finality that left her speechless. He praised Maria's character, her work, and her integrity, making it clear that she was worth more than Genevieve's entire portfolio of jewels and empty titles. To the stunned socialite, he was just a simple man inexplicably defending his girlfriend. But to Maria, it was a moment of breathtaking validation. This man, Alex, had chosen her, defended her, and made her feel like the most important person in the world. After Genevieve stormed off, a fragile silence settled between them. Maria looked at Alex, her heart fluttering with a dangerous mix of gratitude and hope. He had seen a part of her world clash with his, and he hadn't flinched. He had stood by her. That single act of loyalty was more profound than any sweet words he could have whispered. She felt herself falling even faster, completely unaware of the irony of the situation. The incident left Dale shaken. He had acted on pure instinct, a protective urge that surprised even him. He had risked his undercover identity to defend her. The socialite slinked away, humiliated and confused, while Maria looked at him with a new depth of emotion in her eyes. The pretend romance was feeling dangerously real, and Dale knew he was falling far too deep. The walls were coming down. The cynical, detached billionaire CEO who had started this whole affair as a game was rapidly disappearing, replaced by a man genuinely, terrifyingly in love. Dale Kennedy found himself falling for Maria Palmer, not for her looks or for any strategic advantage, but for the pure, unvarnished goodness of her soul. It was an emotional transformation he was completely unprepared for. Her kindness was like water on stone, slowly but surely eroding the cynical defenses he had spent a lifetime building. He saw it in the way she spoke to the children at the center, the patience she had with the elderly, and the unwavering fire she held for her cause. She was authentic in a way that no one in his life had ever been. She didn't want anything from him because she didn't know he had anything to give. This love story felt different because it was built on a foundation of lies, yet the feelings were startlingly real. He cherished their simple moments together, sharing a cheap coffee, walking through the park, or working side by side in comfortable silence. These moments were more valuable to him than any multi-million-dollar deal. They were real, and they were with her. A true love was blooming from a hidden identity. The daily deception began to weigh on him like a physical burden. Every innocent question she asked about his past sent a jolt of panic through him. He built a flimsy backstory, a house of cards that felt like it could collapse at any moment. The constant vigilance was exhausting, a stark contrast to the effortless honesty he received from her. He was living a split existence, and the two halves were tearing him apart. He started to see his own life through her eyes and was disgusted by the reflection. The heartless CEO she despised was him. The policies she fought against had his signature on them. He was living a double life, and the guilt began to eat away at him. How could he tell her the truth? How could he admit that their entire relationship was predicated on a massive, unforgivable deception? The more he fell for her, the more terrifying the inevitable revelation became. He was trapped between the man he was pretending to be man she was falling for and the man he actually waste man she hated most. This internal drama was a constant torment. He knew that the moment he revealed his secret identity, he would likely lose the only authentic thing in his life. Yet, he couldn't stop. Her presence was a balm to his lonely soul, her belief in him and Alex a validation he had craved his entire life. Her authenticity was dismantling the jaded billionaire, piece by piece, and rebuilding him into someone who wanted to be worthy of her love. It was a life-changing romance, and it was headed directly for a catastrophic collision with the truth. The moment of reckoning arrived without warning, on a day filled with the noise of righteous anger. Maria was leading a major protest against Kennedy Enterprises, right outside their gleaming corporate headquarters. It was the culmination of weeks of planning, a last-ditch effort to save her community center from the wrecking ball. Her voice was hoarse from chanting, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and desperation. Dale was there too, but not as Alex. He had been called into an emergency board meeting, a crisis he could no longer ignore. He had intended to slip away unseen, to return to his double life as soon as possible. But the protest had swelled to a massive size, blocking the main entrance. His security team insisted on an alternate exit, a discreet side door that, by a cruel twist of fate, opened right into Maria's line of sight. She saw it all as if in slow motion. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb. The door of the skyscraper opened, and out stepped the man she knew as Alex, but he wasn't wearing his usual worn-out jeans and simple t-shirt. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, a symbol of power and wealth. He moved with an air of authority she had never seen before, a man completely in his element. And then she heard it. A security guard, speaking into his wrist, said the words that would shatter her world. "Mr. Kennedy, the car is ready." Maria's heart stopped. Mr. Kennedy. It couldn't be. Her mind reeled, trying to make sense of the impossible. She watched as he got into the limousine, his face tense, never once looking in her direction. It was a scene from another universe, a universe she had been fighting against. The signs, the chanting, the crowd around her all faded into a dull roar. The two images in her head, the kind volunteer and the ruthless CEO, violently merged into one, creating a portrait of monstrous deception. The man she loved and the man she hated were the same person. The realization wasn't a whisper, it was a sonic boom. A plot twist so devastating it knocked the air from her lungs. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, a protest sign slipping from her numb fingers as the limousine pulled away. A fellow protester, a friend, rushed to her side, asking if she was all right, but Maria couldn't answer. She couldn't feel the hand on her shoulder or hear the concerned questions. She was trapped in the silent, screaming aftermath of a reality that had just been torn to shreds. The limousine disappeared into traffic, carrying with it the shattered remnants of her trust, her hope, and her heart. The fight for her community was suddenly overshadowed by a far more personal and painful war. The betrayal was absolute, a perfectly executed strike against the very core of her being. The world tilted on its axis, and for a terrifying moment, Maria thought she might actually fall. The devastating truth crashed down on her not like a wave, but like a building collapsing on top of her. Dale Kennedy. The kind, gentle Alex was the ruthless, calculating Dale Kennedy. Every shared secret, every quiet moment, every laugh at all replayed in her mind, now tainted with the sickening colors of deceit. She felt like the world's biggest fool. The entire relationship, which she had treasured as the one pure and beautiful thing in her life, was a lie. A cruel, calculated game. The only conclusion she could draw was that he had been mocking her from the very beginning. It was a rich man's perverse entertainment, going undercover to laugh at the poor woman fighting so desperately against him. Her cause, her passion, her entire life's work, had he seen it all as a joke? This thought was the most humiliating of all. Had he been gathering intelligence, trying to find her weaknesses to dismantle her protest from the inside? The paranoia and pain were a toxic cocktail, poisoning every good memory she had of him. His affection hadn't been real, it had been a tool, a weapon used against her. She began to mentally retrace their conversations, each memory now a source of agony. His innocent questions about the center's funding, their legal strategy, their moralite wasn't curiosity, it was espionage. He had used her trust as a key, unlocking all of her vulnerabilities for his own corporate gain. The man she had confided in was her greatest enemy, listening and taking notes all along. She stumbled away from the protest, her friends' concerned calls fading behind her. She needed to be alone, to process the sheer scale of the betrayal. He had seen her at her most vulnerable, listened to her rail against Dale Kennedy, and had never once flinched. The level of deception was psychopathic. It was a shocking drama that made her question her own judgment, her own instincts about people. The romance she thought was her salvation was actually her damnation. He hadn't been slumming it to find himself. He had been a wolf in sheep's clothing, observing her, probably laughing at her naivety. This was the ultimate rich man, poor woman story, but it wasn't a fairy tale. It was a horror story where the prince was the dragon, and she had willingly let him into her castle. The heartbreak was a physical ache in her chest, sharp and relentless. She felt a burning anger begin to rise through the pain, an anger directed not just at him, but at herself for being so easily fooled. His secret identity had been a perfectly crafted weapon, and it had hit its target with devastating precision. Her true love had turned out to be her sworn enemy. The confrontation was inevitable. Maria didn't wait. Fueled by a righteous inferno of heartbreak and rage, she went straight to the lion's den. Using the press credentials of a friend, she bypassed the layers of security at Kennedy Enterprises and made her way to the top floor. She found him in his office, the sprawling city lights behind him, looking every bit the powerful CEO she now knew him to be. He looked up, and for a moment, his face registered shock, then a glimmer of hope, which she extinguished with the ice in her eyes. "Hello, Dale," she said, the name tasting like poison on her tongue. The sound of his real name from her lips made him flinch. He started to speak, to explain, but she held up a hand, silencing him. She was in control now. She walked slowly towards him, her voice dangerously calm. She laid out the depth of his betrayal, not with tears, but with a cold, precise fury. She spoke of how he had violated her trust, mocked her cause, and turned her genuine affection into a weapon against her. Each word was a perfectly aimed blow, stripping away his defenses. This was her revenge, delivered not with a scheme, but with the brutal truth. She saw the anguish on his face, the profound regret in his eyes. But in her rage, she couldn't accept it as genuine. She saw it as just another mask, another performance from a man who was an expert at deception. This wasn't a heartbroken lover, this was a cornered CEO, trying to mitigate the damage. This thought only fueled her fury, convincing her that every part of him was a calculated lie. Feeling utterly betrayed and humiliated, she stood before him, the raw emotion finally boiling over. "Was it fun?" she asked, her voice cracking for the first time. "Was I just a good story for you to tell your billionaire friends? The naive little activist who fell for the big, bad CEO?" The pain in her question hung in the air, a testament to the damage he had caused. He reached for her, his face a mask of anguish, whispering her name. And that's when she snapped. The sound of her hand connecting with his cheek echoed in the cavernous office. It wasn't a gesture of violence, but a finality. A full stop to their story. A physical manifestation of the emotional slap he had delivered to her. "I never want to see you again," she said, her voice regaining its strength. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving him shattered in the silent, opulent prison he had built for himself. She didn't look back. The love story was over, dead and buried under the weight of his hidden identity. She left him standing alone, the sting on his cheek a pale comparison to the agony in his heart. The betrayal is overwhelming, a complete shutdown of trust. What single word describes Maria Palmer's emotional state right now? Share it in the comments section. The silence in Dale Kennedy's office was louder than any boardroom argument. The faint, red mark on his cheek was a constant reminder of the train wreck he had caused. Haunted by his actions, by the look of utter betrayal in Maria's eyes, he was forced to confront a horrifying truth in his attempt to escape the caricature of the heartless CEO. He had become the very monster she always thought he was. His experiment, which began as a cynical search for authenticity, had led him to the only authentic thing in his life, Maria. And then he had destroyed it. He had played with her emotions, treated her life as a game, and confirmed her worst fears about men like him. The irony was crushing. He had worn a mask to find a genuine connection, only to realize the mask had become his true face. He paced his office, the city lights blurring through a film of unshed tears. He saw his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window's tailored suit. The powerful stance seemed he hated the man looking back at him. That man was a liar. That man was a coward. That man had broken the heart of the only person who had ever seen him. Truly seen him, even when he was pretending to be someone else. In a sudden guttural cry of fury and self-loathing, he swept his arm across his desk. An obscenely expensive minimalist lamp crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. The violent noise did nothing to quell the storm inside him. He had just smashed a 5-figure art piece, but it was a hollow gesture. It was nothing compared to the priceless, irreplaceable thing he had broken just moments before. The shattering of their connection was a life-changing event, but not in the way Head ever imagined. It wasn't a triumphant return to his old life, it was the complete collapse of his moral compass. He had proven his own cynical worldview right, but the victory felt like ash in his mouth. He was rich, powerful, and utterly, completely alone with the consequences of his choices. This wasn't just about a failed romance, it was about the state of his soul. Maria, with her fiery integrity and unwavering compassion, had been his chance at redemption. She was the why he had been searching for, the purpose beyond profit margins and stock prices. And he had treated her as a means to an end, humiliating her in the most intimate way possible. He realized with a sickening certainty that his entire life was a lie, not just the Alex persona. His friendships were transactional, his success hollow. Maria was the only real thing he had touched in years. Haunted by the memory of her slap, Dale Kennedy finally understood. He hadn't just lost her, he had lost himself. He had become the villain of his own love story. A switch had been flipped inside Dale Kennedy. The agonizing guilt and self-loathing finally coalesced into something else, a purpose. He wasn't just going to feel sorry for himself, he was going to act. He realized that words were useless now. Apologies were meaningless without action. If he was ever going to even begin to atone for what he had done, he had to prove he had changed, not with promises, but with power. In a move that sent shockwaves through the entire company and the city's business community, he called an emergency press conference. No one knew what to expect, but no one could have predicted what came next. With a calm, unwavering voice, Dale Kennedy publicly and unilaterally reversed the very corporate policy Maria had been fighting against. It was a shocking move, a complete oneida. He didn't just halt the redevelopment project, he announced a new initiative to fund and renovate the existing community center, ensuring its future indefinitely. He used the full force of his power as CEO to save her community, publicly validating every single argument she had ever made against him. He was undoing his own heartless work in the most public way possible. The moment the press conference ended, his office became a war room. His CFO was screaming about fiduciary duty to the shareholders, and his legal counsel was warning of potential lawsuits from their development partners. They saw it as madness, a catastrophic and emotional decision. But Dale was resolute, batting away their arguments with a cold certainty that unnerved them all. The Dale they knew was gone. The decision was a bombshell. His board was furious, investors were confused, and the media went into a frenzy. They called it financial suicide, an emotional and erratic decision from a CEO known for his cold logic. But Dale didn't care about the stock price or the angry phone calls. He was tearing down a part of his empire to prove that her values had become his. This wasn't a calculated business move, it was an act of contrition. He knew Maria would see it as a ploy, an attempt to buy her forgiveness. Maybe it was, but it was also the first truly authentic action he had taken as Dale Kennedy in years. He was using his immense power not for profit, but for good. For her, it was the only language he knew to show his transformation. He saved her community center from demolition, but he knew it wasn't enough to save what they had. It was just the first step on a long, arduous road to redemption. He wasn't trying to erase the past, but to build a different future, one where he was a man worthy of the forgiveness of someone like Maria Palmer. The surprise move was made now. He had to prove it wasn't just another game. Dale knew that one grand gesture, no matter how shocking, wouldn't be enough to heal the wounds he had caused. Trust, once shattered, couldn't be bought back with a single corporate decision. So he began a series of grand yet deeply personal and selfless acts, a quiet campaign designed not to win her love, but to simply earn the possibility of her forgiveness. This was his path to redemption. He started by showing up, not as a CEO, but as a volunteer. He didn't ask for permission, he just appeared at the community center one morning, dressed in simple work clothes, and started scrubbing floors. The other volunteers were stunned into silence, and Maria, when she saw him, simply stared, her expression an unreadable mix of anger and confusion. She didn't throw him out, but she didn't speak to him either. Day after day he returned. He did the jobs no one else wanted. He cleaned toilets, took out the trash, and organized the messy storage basement. He never tried to talk to her about what happened. He just worked silently and diligently, absorbing the cold shoulders and suspicious glares. He was proving through sweat and humility that he was willing to put in the work, to serve the cause he had once tried to destroy. One afternoon, while he was quietly painting a hallway, a little girl from the after-school program approached him. She didn't know who he was or the drama surrounding him. She simply asked if he could help fix her broken doll. Dale, the billionaire CEO, stopped everything, sat down on the floor with her, and spent the next hour meticulously gluing the doll back together. It was a small, quiet moment of grace in his self-imposed penance. His transformation was evident in more than just manual labor. He used his business acumen to help the center secure long-term, sustainable funding from other sources, ensuring it would never again be at the mercy of a corporation. He set up scholarships for the neighborhood kids and used his connections to get better resources for their after-school programs. He was using his privilege for her mission, seeking nothing in return. Each act was a silent apology, a piece of a puzzle that he hoped would one day show her the man he was trying to become. This wasn't the cynical Dale Kennedy playing a game. This was a man on a mission to rebuild his own character from the ground up. He wasn't seeking to buy her love with money, but to demonstrate his life-changing commitment to the values she embodied. He was patient. He knew this process could take months, years, or it might never succeed at all. But for the first time, his actions were aligned with his heart. He was seeking a different kind of profit redemption, and he was willing to do whatever it took to show Maria Palmer that his transformation was not a temporary ploy, but a permanent emotional change of a man who had finally found his true north. The quiet campaign of service was the foundation, but Dale knew a public crime required a public apology. The whispers and rumors about his erratic behavior had reached a fever pitch, and he decided to face the storm hidden. He called another press conference, this time not to announce a business decision, but to make a personal confession. It was a move his PR team begged him not to make. In front of a wall of cameras, Dale Kennedy, the powerful billionaire CEO, did the unthinkable. He publicly apologized by name to a community advocate named Maria Palmer. He didn't hedge or use corporate doublespeak. He confessed everything, telling the world about his cynical experiment, his undercover deception, and the profound betrayal he had inflicted upon a good and honorable woman. He laid his shame bare for the world to see. He confessed that he had gone looking for dishonesty and had instead found an integrity that had fundamentally changed him. He declared, to a stunned audience, that Maria Palmer's values her belief in community, compassion, and human dignity had forever altered the mission of his company, and more importantly, had forever changed his heart. Maria watched the live stream on her phone from the quiet of the community center's office. She had expected spin, a carefully worded statement to control the narrative. But as he spoke, her armor of anger began to crack. She heard the tremor in his voice, saw the genuine shame in his eyes. It wasn't a performance. It was a confession. The raw honesty of it left her breathless and deeply confused. It was a moment of raw, shocking vulnerability. He stripped away the armor of his CEO title and spoke as a man who had made a terrible mistake and was desperately trying to make it right. He wasn't making excuses. He was taking full, unconditional responsibility for the pain he had caused. He made it clear that the changes at his company were not a business strategy, but a direct result of her influence on him. This public declaration was the ultimate act of surrender. He was handing her all the power, giving her the public vindication she deserved. He was telling the world that she had been right about him, and that he was now dedicating himself to becoming the man she had always deserved to meet. It was a life-changing speech that would be talked about for years. He ended the press conference without taking questions, leaving the reporters in a stunned frenzy. He had no idea if Maria was watching or if she would even care. But it didn't matter. He had done it for her and for himself. It was a public acknowledgement of her worth and his failure, a desperate plea for a clean slate, and a testament to a true love he was willing to fight for, no matter the cost. This public apology was a massive step, a testament to her impact. If you believe that taking responsibility is a true sign of strength, hit the like button as a show of respect for this life-changing moment. Dale had one final gesture to make, the capstone of his efforts to prove his transformation was real. It wasn't about money or power in the traditional sense, it was about honoring her spirit by giving her the tools to amplify her own work. After the public apology, he approached her, not at the center, but on neutral ground, and asked for one final chance to speak, to present his last piece of evidence. With a heart full of hope and a stomach full of nerves, he revealed his final move. Kennedy Enterprises was launching a new independent multi-million-dollar charitable foundation. Its mission would be to support underprivileged communities across the city, fighting the very battles Maria had dedicated her life to. It was a massive commitment, a new direction for the entire Kennedy legacy. But that wasn't the real surprise. Dale revealed that the company's board had unanimously approved the foundation's new president and executive director. He slid a single folder across the table. She opened it to see an official offer, a contract with her name on it. He was offering to put her in charge. The new foundation would be run by Maria Palmer. He explained that this wasn't a job offer, it was an abdication. He was giving her the power and the resources she had always deserved, with no strings attached. She would have complete autonomy, the ability to enact real, widespread change, to fight for every community that was being overlooked. He wasn't just fixing one problem, he was giving her the power to fix hundreds. It was the ultimate proof. He wasn't trying to control her or buy her. He was empowering her. He was stepping back and acknowledging that she, not him, was the true expert in compassion and community. It was his way of saying, "You were right all along. Now take my resources and show the world how it's done." It was the final, irrefutable piece of his transformation. Tears welled up in Maria's eyes as she looked from the contract to the man in front of her. A man who had humiliated her, then humbled himself. A man who had broken her heart, then spent months trying to piece it back together through selfless action. In this final, breathtaking gesture, he was finally proving his love and earning a second chance. The rich man, poor woman story had found its unbelievable, beautiful ending. She closed the folder and looked at him, a long, searching look. There was no grand kiss, no dramatic embrace. Instead, there was a quiet nod of acceptance. A fragile, tentative truce that spoke volumes. It was an acknowledgement of the painful journey they had been on, and the silent promise of a new one. This time built not on a secret identity, but on a shared, honest purpose. What an incredible journey. This story is a powerful reminder that our true net worth isn't measured in dollars, but in our capacity for change. It proves that true love doesn't just find us, it has the power to rebuild us from the ground up, turning a heartless man into a hero, and showing that even the deepest betrayal can be the start of a beautiful redemption. If you also believe that kindness is a superpower, and that everyone deserves a second chance to get it right, then you've definitely found your tribe. This channel is for people like you. Make sure you subscribe and become an official member of our community of story lovers. Now for the 3 most important clicks you'll make today. First, hit the like button to help this story reach more people who need to see it. Second, comment below with the answer to this question. What was the single act that convinced you Dale's change was real? And third, share this video with one person who needs a reminder that true love is an action, not just a word. And don't let the journey end here. While you wait for our next upload, know that our channel is a treasure chest of emotional stories just like this one. Explore our older videos and discover other unforgettable tales of secrets and surprises. To make sure you never miss what's coming next, ring that notification bell. We have so many more stories to tell, and you won't want to miss a single one.